Alright, so we've gone through pretty much the basic setup of a patching system with GLC v3, and that'll work for indie and developer editions. So the final thing to do is build our launcher. So once you're happy with that, you can just go to File, Build Launcher, and when the build dialog comes up, you've got to remember to include patching. So you've got to toggle this to on, because it'll include the patching system then as well. And once you've done that and you've configured your executable file name and any other settings that you need to do, just click on Build, and the Game Launcher Creator will build out our launcher. Doesn't take too long at all, a few seconds. There we go. So we click on View Launcher Files, we can see we have our launcher here, all our launcher files. So we can just simply select them, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our game install folder that I've created in this new patch test, which is completely blank, and I'm just going to paste those launcher files over. I used Control V then, in case you didn't know. You can just right click and select paste once you've copied them from here. Now, a couple of things before we do our first launcher test, and the first thing is, let me just minimize v3. Do you remember before we built out the patch configuration file? Well, the first thing you need to do is just rename that, because we're going to use it locally, so we need to rename it to patch.config. And we copy that, paste it into your data folder with your launcher, because this is where it's going to look, the patching system is going to look for our patch configuration file, which contains all our patch settings inside. And there, that's pretty much it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run the launcher. Now, if you remember, on the versioning settings, I set it up so that it checks at the start of the launcher. So it'll check the version text file, which, by the way, doesn't exist right now. We need to create that. And then it'll check the remote version file. And then when an update's available, it'll call the patching system. Now, if you remember rightly, the patch that we've just built is 0.1.0. So on our first build, ideally, we create the version text file, and then we need to just set it to 0. Because this will mean that it triggers the patcher to download the game on the first run. So when I run this now, it's going to pop up, and there we go, patching system pops up, and it immediately starts downloading the game files to this directory that we're in, not that one, game install. You can see the files being downloaded here, look. So they're being downloaded from the server and installed onto the computer. And what it'll do is it's checking the integrity of every single file. So what it'll do, what the AOPS 2 system does, is it downloads all the files and patches them, and then before it closes, it'll recheck all the files just to make sure that the integrities are intact. And if they're not, then it knows that there's a problem and the file will start looping. It'll probably throw an error as well. So if when you do this first initial test here like this, if it throws an error up, it means that you've done something wrong. It means that you've either put in a typo somewhere, or there's something wrong with your web server. And again, we can only give you support for our web servers because they are our servers, so we know how they're set up, and we can get into the actual server, you know, to fix any problems if there are any. But our servers are set up as standard to automatically support AOPS anyway, so you'll never get any problems with our servers. But if you do get an error on this first check, like this first test that we're doing like now, then there's something wrong somewhere. You need to go through your settings again and just make sure, you know, that all the URLs that you've put in exist, the salt file exists, the password in the salt file is the same as the salt that you're using for the builds, you know what I mean? But we do have extensive documentation over on the Bytebox Media Support website regarding this as well. So just make sure you go through the debug logging guide and just double check everything. But as you can see, I mean, I've not done anything different here in between these videos. We've just gone from setting up our patch system, basic patch system, and you can see that it's working just fine, and it's downloading all the files as it should be doing. There is just shy of 1,000 files to download. And this won't take long now. It'll probably get to about 50%, then it'll do the integrity checks on the files that it's just downloaded, and you'll see that in a second. And there we go. So it's finished downloading all the files now, and now it's just scanning through all the files that it's downloaded just to triple check that everything's okay. And voila, when it's finished, and that means that we now have our game installed and the version has been updated to the same version number that's on the server. So what this means now is that when we run our launcher again, it'll check at the beginning and it'll know that version 1 is installed on the computer and version 1's available on the server, so there's no need to update, so it won't run the patching system again. So that's basically how you set up the basic patch system inside GLC v3. Dead easy, and you can see that there's no errors that's popped up and there's no issues at all. So, you know, again, if you do run into some issues or something's not working, follow these videos again and just triple check all the URLs that you've put in. You know, triple check. Also, triple check that your version text file exists here locally if you're using version text file. There are other options that you can use. So, for example, you can use the registry or an ini file for your local version checking. If you have an initial installer that your user downloads, then you could write out the first version to the registry. So you can use the registry or an ini file or just a text file. Just triple check that all your URLs are correct, especially for remote version. And one of the best ways to check is to actually copy the URL and paste it into your web browser, and it should show the information there. If it doesn't, if it comes up with a 404 error or a 403 error or something like that, then something's not right with your web server, or you've typed in, you know, this is incorrect, the URL that you've specified here is incorrect. So you need to rectify that and figure it out why it's incorrect and where it's incorrect. And again, we can try and help you in the Discord, but you know, ultimately, unless it's one of our servers, there's not too much support that we can give you in that front, because it's not our service, it's not our product. So our hands ultimately become tied, and this is why we have our own set of patch servers for users of GLC, which we have hundreds of users using our patch servers daily. You know, our patch servers are super fast and they're highly efficient. They're running on a 10 gig backbone, and so no matter where you are in the world, you're going to get consistent download speeds for your users, and everything's handled for you. And you know, so I know I keep stressing that, but it is very important that I do stress that. But again, you know, just double check everything. Double check your URLs here, and then, you know, if you need to, go back to the patch builder, load the patch builder up and open your project up, and check all the URLs in the main settings that you've got in there as well, and just check that, you know, copy all them down. You know, so for example, if you open up your project and go to main settings, you know, that this here, just double check all these, triple check them, make sure that they're correct and there's no typos. Because honestly, I can't stress to you, especially in the early days of Game Launcher Creator, the amount of users that we spent so many hours on trying to help, you know, and in the end they made a typo, literally. You know, they might have missed an E off there or something like that, you know. So just triple check all your URLs and make sure they're correct before you do it, and then try it again. But that is basically how you set up the AOPS system with GLC v3. Now, before I go, there's a lot more to the patching system than meets the eye. Like, for example, you can use a custom patch design. So you can basically create an image that is the size of the launcher and display that, the patcher, and display that in the patching system in the background. There's loads of other options that you can play about with as well and tweak with regards to the patching system. You know, if you've got a developer edition of GLC v3, then you're in for a right treat, because there are so many things that you can do with the developer edition. So, for example, do you remember when we put the where's the data folder? Do you remember when we put the patch configuration file inside the data folder here? Well, with the developer version, you can actually host this file on your server, and then you just simply send a command line in here. So wherever you trigger the updater, you can send a command line here that simply says download the patch configuration file from this URL. So that means you can update the configuration file on your server at any time, and it'll instantly reflect across all your launchers and patching systems. There's a whole host of other things you can do. If you have something in mind and you think, I want it to work this way, will it work this way, have a look over the documentation system. If you're still unsure after you check that, then just pop a question in Discord, or do a search in the Discord server and see if somebody's already asked it and there's an answer to it. And if there isn't, then just pop the question in, and one of our support staff or maybe one of our other users will get back to you and tell you whether that's possible or not. But again, this video tutorial series is just concentrated purely on setting up the basic patch system. There's so many other things you can do. You can use the registry, you can use multiple servers with the developer edition. You can there's honestly, just check out the documentation. There's so many, you can go from a basic patch system to a professional patch system. It has a lot of professional features in there if you're using the developer edition of GLC v3. But that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the patch system covered in Game Launcher Creator v3. I hope these videos have been useful for you. And again, I can't stress it enough. Check out the documentation system over at biteboxmedia.support website, and search through the Discord, see if anyone's got any answers to any questions that you may have there. And if not, just post up in the Discord, it's absolutely fine, or you can drop us an email and we'll help you out there where we can as well. But have fun with Game Launcher Creator, have fun with your patching system. You can literally have it up and running. I mean, these videos altogether have probably accumulated to 30 minutes. We've managed to cover and build an entire patching system in less than 30 minutes. So yeah, just have fun, and don't stress. When things get a little bit too blurry, don't stress about it. You've got the support here, you've got the documentation, you've got these videos, and you've got the support staff online to help out where possible. But again, triple check all your URLs, and just make sure that your patch salt matches up with what's on your patch salt in the server as well. But yeah, have fun with GLC, and I'll probably see you in some extended videos that I'm probably going to do on this, just to show you some tricks that you can do with the developer edition.